Hi, I'm Jonathan Rudis, Senior Vice President of Cresa, Long Island. Welcome to this week's version of Real Talk. We're pleased to have as our guest this week Alan Bushell, co-founder of ProCalc. That's the company, but Alan and I are old friends, and we want to talk a little bit today about ProCalc and how it helps companies reduce their real estate cost and how it's an invaluable tool for most brokers.
Okay.
Alan, when did you start ProCalc, and what got into you?
Well, John, as you know, I was a broker back in '88. John actually taught the class when I took my real estate license course. That's how we first met. And what I realized early on is that I would show tenants space and I would have meetings with them, but when I would go back with a spreadsheet, everybody sat up at the table and said, let me see that, and it dawned on me that money is what this business is all about.
Money drives the business. There you go.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, you know, real estate is a dead asset on a company's books, but it is the second costliest expense after payroll to any company. So money is what really drives decisions in real estate, and the finance and the economics of leasing transactions. And I started to do spreadsheets, and then I found myself recreating the wheel every single day, and I said, well, this is silly. Why don't I just build a spreadsheet program with a set of questions, and the facts would fill out once I answered the questions. And ProCalc was born.
So, I guess fast forward, that was how many years ago?
In 1989.
1989. So we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
So what percentage of the brokerage community would you say uses ProCalc today?
We have over 2,000 companies currently using ProCalc today.
And the geographic?
It's worldwide.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously mostly U.S. companies, but the U.S. companies have foreign offices. They get it as well. So, I mean, 90% of the business is domestically here in the U.S., but there are offices. 10% of our business is probably outside of the country.
And I guess we started off, and I say we because it was a certainly specialty of mine in the early day. We started off doing cash flow analysis. I guess today you're doing everything from cash flow analysis to tax analysis to FASB. I mean, what?
When I started with ProCalc, we had one program, a tenant rep module, and quickly saw the need for a landlord module, and then a subleasing module, and then a lease versus buy module, and we built those, and that now covers the gamut of everything. We did pre-tax cash flow. It has also included post-tax analysis, GAAP, and P&L analysis as well.
So, you know, I mean, on the one hand, it sounds like a tremendous tool, but on the other hand, it sounds like it's very dangerous in the hands of a typical broker.
Well, that's an excellent point, John.
I mean, with all due respect, I understand it, but most other people that got out there don't. So,
between my brother and I, over the last 23 years, we have fielded pretty close to 1 million tech support calls from brokers, landlords, Fortune 500 corporate real estate executives, leasing, buying. We have a real good understanding of our market, our users, the level of expertise that they have, either with real estate or computers. And we know all the problems. We have perfected the model so that although we do pre-tax, post-tax, GAAP, and P&L, we've added the post-tax, GAAP, and P&L, but did not add any data entry boxes. So in other words, the user fills out the same information they always filled out, but we take that and do all the work in the background to generate the other reports. So they don't have to know the post-tax analysis, the GAAP, and the P&L and what's going on. You fill in the terms of the deal, we do all the work to generate the reports. You still need to understand the reports.
I mean, Alan, I'm just a tremendous fan of what you've done. But you know, I'm such a skeptic.
Right.
You know, I mean, brokers shouldn't be allowed to have access to the numbers unless they're brokers like me who actually understands the numbers.
Right.
I mean, you know, I know that it's not a black and white number. I mean, I can't tell you how many brokers come to me and say, you know, oh, my analysis people, whether they use ProCalc or not, doesn't matter. This is how much it is, and I'm like, Okay, well, did you evaluate it on a sensitivity basis to see, what happens on a different set of assumptions? So it just seems to me that it's a very dangerous program in the hands of the, uneducated.
Bad data in, bad data out. That's for sure. But what I tell brokers is that you need to understand every number that comes out on a ProCalc spreadsheet. When I say understand it, I mean you got to be able to pick up your HP12C
and how it can be
prove it.
changed. I mean,
Right.
Listen, one of the other courses I used to teach, right, that I don't think you took, maybe you did, how to lie with numbers.
I didn't take that one.
And any time I have the opportunity to do the numbers, please let me do the numbers.
Okay.
Right? Whether or not I use ProCalc, I can make it. I mean, ProCalc's a great tool, but if you know how to use it properly, right, you can make it say what it has to say.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% that in the wrong hands it could be dangerous. But
Am I the right hands or the wrong hands?
you are definitely on the right hand side.
Okay, good.
My job, what I've tried to do over the last 23 years, is to educate brokers so that they can do their own analysis in the right way. Here's the thing. The biggest part of a broker's job is to negotiate the business points of the deal. Nobody is going to do that. There's not a lawyer that's going to do that. There's not an architect, an engineer. Nobody else is going to do that.
Right.
That is the broker's job. If you're not able to do an analysis to see this is the landlord's proposal, and this is where I think we're going to go back, and then the landlord came back here, and we're going back here. You need to be able to track the deal so that you know how you're doing.
Yes, I agree 1,000%.
Okay, so that is the broker's job. He's got to know how to do that. I have simplified the mousetrap to the point where brokers can do this. It will require some knowledge and education in using it and understanding finance. It's very important to understand net present value, net effective rental rates. How do you value concessions, okay? What is the difference between a month of free rent, $5 in TI, a different base year for operating, or extending the term of the lease for 3 months? We don't know, okay? You have to be able to put it in and do
So
it.
let me ask you this question. Okay, given that I consider myself one of the most sophisticated
I do too.
of these, but there are limits to my knowledge. I've never been a tax person. I've never been a real finance person. So the question I have for you is that, given my level of expertise, can I, bring it to a point, do my analysis, put my sensitivity analysis into it, and then, be able to drop it into, the extended program that helps me understand some of the tax ramifications and finance ramifications of the
So here's the thing.
transaction?
If you use ProCalc and you try to look at the post-tax analysis or the gap analysis or the P&L analysis and you don't understand it, you pick up the phone and you call us. And we are your answer man. We are how you're going to learn. If you never use it, you don't know what you don't know and you'll never pick up the phone and call. So you need to think of this as an educational tool. I'm going to start using it. I'm going to start every night doing some dummy analysis,
Right.
work through it, make sure I understand it, and I will become a better broker. And I know if there's anything I don't understand or something that I can't prove on my calculator, I can call the tech support line at ProCalc and get the answer. They'll explain it to
And
me.
you're better than calling, some accounting firm, Ernst &
Way
Young?
better. Way better. Because once you have the program, we don't charge. You know what it's going to cost you to charge to call Ernst & Young? And they're not going to be able to tell you in terms of real estate. You can call us up and say, here's my deal, here's what I'm doing, here's the number I got, I don't understand. We're real estate guys. We come from the brokerage background.
Right.
So we understand what you do day in and day out.
So let's go back to the beginning,
Okay.
all right? Most people think that all real estate people do is identify alternatives, okay? Show me some space if
Couldn't
I like
be further
it.
from the truth.
Right? Yeah, I agree. But show me some space, if I like it, I'll call my lawyers and my accountants and everybody else, right? You and I both know that really isn't the way it's supposed to go, right? And we also know that if you put 3 alternatives in front, right, the base rent is probably the least of the issues that are important in a real estate transaction, right? So, the best way to do this is, number one, you get the 3 alternatives. Now, these days, information is available to everybody.
Dime a dozen.
Multiple listing systems between LoopNet and CoStar and all the other things. Everybody pretty much has the same information. So the two things that you're playing with is your ability to evaluate, right, and your ability to negotiate. Starting with the ability to evaluate, right, the best way to figure out the differences in the costs of a transaction, right? And the best transaction for your particular company is, number one, get me, who actually understands what all this means and understands the sensitivity analysis and the what-if scenarios, and then get you, who is able to put it into a full understanding of the financial and tax ramifications of and then you can compare, right?
Apples to apples.
Apples to
A, B, and
apples,
C.
and you can decide which one is better for your company.
Exactly.
Right.
It's important, I tell people, that when you're doing analysis, sometimes they call me up and say, this deal is a gross deal, this deal is a net deal, how can I make them equal? The goal is not to make the deals equal. The goal is, look at building A. What are my costs to get into, occupy, and get out of this building? Do that analysis, save it. Go to building B. What are my costs to get into, occupy, and get out of this building? Do the analysis, save it. Same thing with C. Now compare the three. Don't try to make them equal. Don't try to make them the same.
I always say, right, that the real key difference is the sensitivity analysis. Okay, the what-if scenarios.
That's right.
And in a 2% inflation rate, you have one thing that might be, prove out to be better, but at a 5% inflation rate, you could come up with a completely different conclusion.
So none of us can predict the future of what operating and taxes are going to be in a specific building. So that's one of the inflation rates that we have to play
Right.
with. One building could be 3%, one building could be 5%, and that can be a huge difference between the two.
And don't forget net present values are different as well. I mean, evaluating the risks are really more about evaluating the potentiality of some of your assumptions, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Historical values in properties need to be addressed. Occupancy levels in each property needs to be assessed. In terms of, a lot of people say to me, well, your discount rate is subject to the risk rate. When you're doing lease analysis, I disagree with that concept. If I'm looking at a building and you're a landlord and I'm a tenant and I'm doing an analysis, people say, what discount rate should I use? For our purposes, the discount rate should be used is the rate at which you, the landlord, can earn money. Because let's say we do a 10-year deal, and it's $1 million in rent. Just if I paid you over 10 years, it would be $1 million. Let's say the present value is $750,000. What we're saying is that if I gave you $750,000 today, I could occupy the space at no additional cost for 10 years. But that would only be true if you and I agreed on the discount
Rate. Yeah, but let's look at it the other way. If I'm evaluating 3 different properties, right, what discount rate should I be using, which is the bottom line?
The same one for all of them.
Well, that's true.
The same one for all of them.
That's true. But how do I arrive at that? I mean, frankly, again, lying with numbers. I could change the result if I use 10% versus 6%.
Right.
So which one is a more appropriate?
In that case,
from the tenant's side, I'm standing here as a tenant.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at 3 different alternatives, okay, and what,
anything from 4 to 8% is generally accepted. It's a question that you can ask your tenant. Okay, use what he wants. If he doesn't have, an idea what he wants to use, you can pick one. As long as you're using the same thing for all of the deals you're comparing, it's fine, because it's only for comparative purposes. We are not paying that rent. Now, when it becomes really important, let's say I'm in the 7th year of a 10-year deal. Business isn't good, I want to combine locations, I want to buy out of this lease. So I go to the landlord and I say, I'd like to cancel my lease. I got 3 years left. We're going to calculate the present value of the remaining obligation. And if I paid the landlord that present value, I'd be giving him basically 100% of the rest of his obligation. I'm going to try and negotiate something less. You would, of course, negotiate something less than that because you're John Rudis, but you're going to try and negotiate something less. The point is now you're going to pay some number that's based on that discount rate. And again, that rate that we're going to use is the rate that the landlord can earn money at. That would be the easiest way to negotiate the deal, because if I'm using a 5% discount rate and we've agreed on that and the present value is $750,000, you can turn 750 into the million over the remaining term. So that's the argument that I've used with a lot of people who want to use a risk rate and a discount rate and try to bring the two together.
I don't know, I'm done.